basically Google wants to determine the one who's getting the most success and can get the most clicks and pay for the most clicks. We want to kind of give it to them. So if one person is sending back value data and another person isn't, it's going to skew towards the person who has the value.
Welcome to Alpha Marketing, your go-to resource for unlocking the full potential of your small to medium-sized business. Hosted by Aaron Shishilla, CEO of Wolfpack Advising. Now, let's learn how to dominate your market.
Today, I'm so stoked to have Michael Cooney, who's joining me as the co-founder of WhatConverts, a SaaS company that helps businesses track every lead back to the marketing source. With an engineering background and years of experience building digital solutions, Michael has helped thousands of companies, from small businesses to large agencies, gain clarity on what marketing actually works. So Michael, welcome to the Marketing Alpha podcast. I'm super stoked for you to be here. I'm glad that you're here.
Oh, well, thank you, Aaron. And thank you for being a customer for so long. I think you've been with us 5 years.
I think it's been a while. Yeah. I'm one of your biggest fans, I would say.
Wow. I saw the customer story that Alex did with you, and it's great. We have a lot of great customer stories, and yours is one of the good ones.
Yeah. It's been one of those things that I don't know. It was such an issue at the beginning when I started my career in marketing and sales. So a little bit about my background, and then we'll jump into yours, Michael, because you're the special guest here. But
yeah, go for
to give you that clarity, like I was trying for 2 years to make Google Ads work, and I didn't know why it wasn't working. And I was getting so frustrated because, COVID, I didn't know it was coming, but COVID was coming and I needed to make something work. But it wasn't until really that we joined WhatConverts and I started diving into the analytics of that I truly understood why a campaign was or wasn't working, because those analytics were available to me. But passing it back to you, tell us who Michael is. Tell us about WhatConverts. What is it that you do?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I started my career as an engineer. I was actually an electrical engineer responsible for building gold mines, on the electrical side in Africa. So that's where I started. But engineering was so detailed, and I just really loved marketing. And so when the internet came around, I started doing marketing for engineering companies. And then from there, we built a large engineering network online. It was an engineering directory connecting engineers and suppliers. And what we found is when we're generating leads for the suppliers, it was always a challenge. So it was kind of a thorn in my side. And ultimately, we also added on a digital marketing agency to this directory. And we started doing great things. We built websites. We did search engine optimization. We did pay-per-click campaigns. And the pain was always like, what have you done for me lately? Am I getting value for my marketing dollars? It was always a very difficult thing to answer, especially if the result is a conversion like a phone call. And so over time, we built up systems to track it, and we tried other call tracking solutions and lead tracking solutions, and they weren't doing it for us. And so we're like, okay, we're going to build something. And that's what WhatConverts is. It tracks every conversion from your website and your marketing, and it ties it back to your marketing so you can get those insights. And then when you get those insights, you can make better decisions. So you can cut the bad campaigns and increase the good ones. And then, from then on, it gets more complicated and tied together. But we ultimately solve the problem on proving, is your marketing generating ROI? And then once it is generating ROI, then let's go and grow it.
I can't believe that at the given time, I don't know. I've tried the other solutions that were out there, and they just, again, like you mentioned, they weren't doing it for me, whether it was the user interface on the front end or how it all ties together. Because WhatConverts in terms of the user interface, and I don't mean to butter you up anymore, but it's pretty intuitive. It's pretty intuitive, pretty easy to get to actually do it. And even just when I have sales conversations with any particular business or company, and we're talking about advertising, right? That's one of the questions that we get all the time is well, how do I track the return on investment? How do I know that's working or whatever else? I'm able to just show the WhatConverts dashboard to be no, see, this particular company that we just worked with, this is their data the last 30 days from advertising, and I can click this button right here. Oh, that's their SEO. And so now you could see what the total quotable value is and the sales value is of that. So we know actually what's working and what's not. But anyway, going back to what you were saying just there, I think it's incredibly awesome how you kind of worked within the industry itself to create this particular tool rather than just jumping in to create this tool. And being able to just have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I could tell you some stories from the agency days. There was one that was a client for a long time, And using the wrong metrics kind of sets you up for failure. So in the search engine optimization days, we got them more and more visitors every year. But then once you get to the top, you hit a plateau. And I ended up calling it the dreaded SEO plateau. And so your whole value as a marketer is based on search engine positions or visitors to a website. And so even though you're getting maximum ROI because you got them at the top of Google, you're generating a lot of leads, you get fired because the growth rate has plateaued. And so it just means you're looking at the wrong metrics. And that's when I realized you got to track it down to the real value. And sales is ultimately the goal. You want to get it down to the final sale. The problem in business, like if you're working for a dentist, I'm just going to use them as an example. You get a family come to you as new patients. Initially, it might only be worth $500 to the company, but over 10 years, it's worth $20,000. So you got to get some kind of value to, show the value when you get that customer. So that's an extended lifetime value. But then you also get other customers where there's a first-time purchase and then there's many after that. And if you measure the marketing on the first-time purchase, I'll give you another example. We work with HVAC companies. Many times the first purchase is a repair to an HVAC system. They come out, it's less than $1,000. They attribute that to marketing because they came through marketing. But then the next year, that same customer comes back through marketing and purchases or decides to replace the HVAC system, which is a 20 grand, fee. And so marketing gets no credit for that. And so what we found is we built a system that could help you determine the value of the opportunity. So with marketing is like, how much am I willing to spend for this opportunity? And that's based on the ultimate value. So in marketing, basically, in a nutshell, the language of business is dollars. And so how do you communicate that in dollars? So that's what we built WhatConverts to help the agency, but not just the agency, the client. We want to help them make good decisions with their marketing.
Do you think that within building WhatConverts, obviously, you have a lot of experience with the engineering side and running your own marketing agency. Do you think that there's a lot of lessons you've learned from other marketing agencies in terms of how you're building WhatConverts? Like what kind of specialty things have you learned or changed over the time from working with other agencies? Just going back to that, I know that there's a lot of customers that I have to kind of talk to them about that whole lifetime value thing. Like, hey, it's not just the initial sale, but you just earned that customer, but now they're in your database. So now we need to try and get their lifetime value. So like what specific lessons or things that you think you've learned after the fact?
Yeah. So after the fact, I mean, one of the conversations that agencies miss is when they get a new client, it's just asking like, how are we going to measure success for this marketing campaign? And, I've had situations where the one client says, hey man, if you're making my phone ring and I'm quoting, you're doing your job. So initially like we knew that. And then I'd like, they were getting, 10 calls a day and he was quoting and he was happy. And then we got it to 15 calls and he was happy. So that's one scenario. Another one, I had that conversation and he was like, well, it's a corporate company. My KPIs are increasing impressions. And so I was like, well, that's a stupid KPI to target. Because it is. But at least we knew what we were targeting.
Yeah.
So I said to him, look, okay, I understand that, but your impressions aren't driving leads, and that's what drives business. So I was coming back to leads as the last step before the sale. So I said, we got to change it to leads. So we changed it then. And then he was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. But we had that first conversation. How is success going to be measured? So that's one lesson. I can go on more. The other one is you got to know the business of your client. If you don't understand that dentists, get value for a long period, you're going to underspend. You're not going to be able to compete with the agencies who do understand that. The same thing if you're dealing with a distributor of electromechanical components. I've got one client, he secured a client being Tesla and then SpaceX. So the first sale are test orders, but then they get these big regular orders over time. And so you got to understand, like that's just, several examples where if they didn't get there through marketing initially, all the following value wouldn't have come. So just understanding the value you're really bringing, you need to understand your client's business.
I felt like if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, or I do feel like that, like the initial conversation of marketing was all about impressions. And that's what everybody cared about was like reach your impressions or like, even if it's a billboard, how many cars are passing through this particular highway. But the conversation then more leaned into like clicks or like how many leads you got. But
Uh-huh.
what you're probably seeing now, and I know WhatConverts does this as well, is like not only what leads are you receiving, how many of those are good leads, right? And then of those good leads that you receive, like when I say good, I mean like which ones are quotable.
Mm-hmm.
And then of that data too, like you guys are sending the quotable data and the sales value data back to these algorithms. Like I know Google Ads is the big one that receives it. Are
Mm-hmm.
there any other platforms? Like I think probably Facebook and Reddit as
Facebook
well.
and Bing are the ones that receive it directly. Those are the ones we've got an integration directly with.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Google is the biggest in terms of for our type of customers.
hmm It's just amazing seeing the evolution of marketing in general just come from it was all about impressions or where you were at in the phone book or how many cars are passing through on this billboard to how more seriously, and even with AI, in my opinion, more seriously, it's geared to actual revenue dollars in sales. So if you're not actually sending the sales value back to Google Ads, like
Hmm.
of what you're actually reporting, like to me, that's a huge detriment to your campaign.
Absolutely. So Google has a campaign type called PMAX. If you try to run PMAX without value, you it's just a guess what you're going to get. You just don't know what it's going to give you. But if you use PMAX and you give it value, and like soon after you've got the conversion, it just operates really well. It gets to train the algorithm like this is valuable, this is not valuable. So if you're not giving it that input, Google doesn't know. And so it's just, then it's going to try to base it on clicks and conversion rate. So it could give you anything.
Can you describe for the audience a little bit like how that works? Because I would imagine a lot of the audience members don't understand like when you're running a Google ad campaign, they might be doing it on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're just like, oh, I'm getting calls, that's what matters to me. So why are we feeding back and how are we feeding back the sales value or like the revenue generated?
So, I mean, there's a lot I could unpack there, but I mean, at the end of the day, should we start with what's Google's motivation?
Sure,
So
let's start there.
Google want to earn ad revenue. And how do they do that? So they've got, let's say, 10 people bidding for the same, amounts or the same. Let's say they all want to bid $5 per click. And so Google's like, who should I give it to? Then they look at, okay, which one's more targeted, which one's going to result in the end result. Basically, Google wants to determine the one who's getting the most success and can get the most clicks and pay for the most clicks. We want to kind of give it to them. So if one person is sending back value data and another person isn't, it's going to skew towards the person who has the value. So I'm looking at it from a different point of view, from a Google motivation point of view. And their motivation is how do we earn more money? And how they earn money should be tied to who gets the most value from our platform. Because if they get value from us earning the ad dollars, this is going to be a longer term revenue play, which is as a stock price to continue going up. I don't know if that's a weird way to look at it for you, but to me, it kind of helps me understand how to play the game. And then the game becomes, that you need to generate value from what they're giving you. And then from your client point of view, from what you're spending, you got to get an ROI so you can continue spending and get more value. And the more you spend, the more love you're going to get from Google. So what actually ends up happening, and what I've seen is the guys that are conservative in spending, they fall further and further behind as things get more expensive. The guys who are spending aggressively and they have their technology and they qualify things and add value, they end up getting more and more, and then they can spend more. And because they can spend more and the ones that are conservative can't spend more, the divide grows. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So I think, I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but it's kind of like a very zoomed out way that you as a marketer got to get ROI. Giving that value to Google helps them give you better ROI. And then don't try and lowball it, because if you lowball it, Google's going to give it to the one who's giving the higher value. So I don't know. I sort of went off on a tangent there. I can
Yeah.
bring it back to clicks and conversion rate if you want to.
No, that's perfect. I think that's a really unique insight there that I haven't necessarily heard before. I was under the impression, like, obviously we know the entire thing is an auction. As more people are bidding, the price goes up, and that's how Google prices it, right? So if there's more people bidding, but I never considered that they would be using the sales value data, not only to understand like how much money you're making, but possibly say like, hey, this particular company is making more money. I want to push to this guy because he's creating more value from that, and I can then charge more for
Hmm.
my. Is that what you're saying? Like Google
Yeah.
can then read that value to understand, hey, I can charge more for, and that's another beautiful insight that you mentioned, because there's a lot of guys that I talk to, and they're nervous about spending money on Google Ads, or they're nervous about spending money anywhere when it comes to advertising, and it's very difficult having a conversation because I'm like, look, we can spend money for a month, but like it's going to be a wash, right? I need to get multiple months of data in order to understand, because WhatConverts and Google Ads will tell me what's wrong. Like, give me a month, give me 2 months of clean data, of
Mm.
enough data with enough budget, and then I can fix whatever's there, whether it's the click-through rate, whether it's the conversion rate on the landing page, maybe the messaging is off, or maybe, which I think is an absolute beauty, which we can get into, is actually the call transcription and the AI sales coach that you guys have to understand, hey, we gave you this amount of leads, right? But lo and behold, it's actually your office team or your sales team that is not able to convert the calls for whatever reason. Like, that was going back to one of my early days. That was another big thing that we realized was, hey, we were sending a bunch of leads from Google Ads over to the office team, but the office team wasn't trained well enough in how to manage those calls. So somebody would call in and say, hey, do you do this service? Which we did. And they'd say, no. And then hang up. And you're like, no, we do that.
One of my favorite examples of that is there was a car dealership using WhatConverts, and the marketing agency was just going over the calls, and they came across this call where a guy saw a Ferrari, an exotic car, on the thing, and it was going for close to $1 million. And this person says, "Hey, I see a Ferrari on your website. Is that still available? I'm interested." And the person says, "No, it's sold. Put the phone down." And so the marketing person says, "No, they told us that they want to sell these cars, and that's not right." So she sent it to the sales director, and the sales director, like, he was fuming because he's like, "Yeah, we have this car." So he called back the person who inquired and actually sold the car. So exactly what you're saying is, like, you could
Yeah.
do the best job marketing, but if the salesperson, like, doesn't answer the call or doesn't do a good job, it's like the value of marketing is just lost.
Yeah. That's huge with these campaigns too. Like with Google local service ads, for example, that's another big one. It's like if you don't pick up the phone and the call goes to voicemail, Google pushes your ranking down. And so you don't get as many leads, you don't get good quality leads, you don't get good costs. And so with WhatConverts and how we're able to track that within our system is like obviously setting up those particular numbers, but then making sure that you're actually picking up the phone and then looking at that metrics, because we can see like, hey, your absolute top of impression rate on search is much lower than what we would expect. It's 10% or it's 12%, which is much lower. Let's go look at your call log history and then see, are you actually picking up the phone and answering?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, there was another story. This one was crazier. We were running ads for this guy for maybe like a month or two, and he had no clue, but he was just a single man operator, didn't have, like, I think he was spending like $1,000 a month or something like that on ads. And all of his calls that were like considered spam getting directly put to voicemail and like hidden for, I think he was using T-Mobile or something like that. And they had like this thing. And without like having the system to be like, he's complaining to us, like, I'm not getting any calls, like I'm getting no leads. And we're like, what are you talking about? You just got 20.
Yeah.
What? And we're able to look at that actual history to understand, and then look at the actual logs to see what is actually happening with it.
That's crazy. And it's such a simple, easy thing to solve. But if you don't have the data and you're not tracking it,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's the one insight you've realized, and a lot of people realize once they do it, is having the data to troubleshoot is huge. Like, sometimes you're running and you don't look at the data and you think, like, is it really worth it? And then you like come up with a situation like this. And it's like, if you didn't have the data, you wouldn't have known. So having that data, going back and look, it's so important. And that's what I say to marketers before you take on a new client. Set up a tracking system. We recommend WhatConverts, but set up a tracking system and set a baseline before you start marketing. Have that conversation, like what does success look like? And then track it. And then as you work, see the growth. So as a marketer, that you got a tracking system, you have to deliver. But if you, doing a right job and providing value, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. I think a lot of business owners miss out on that, is maybe like they want to start advertising and they get into advertising, but they don't understand maybe the due diligence that they need to do after the fact, like how hard it actually is to run a Google ad campaign. It's not easy, because if it were easy, everybody would be rich and everybody would be doing it, but that's obviously not the case.
No.
But
No, the other thing is like when you're tracking and doing things that are difficult, another client from agency days, he had an agency that says, okay, well, you need to run Google ads, $5,000 a month budget. So he says, okay, they did it and they didn't get anything. So the agency says, well, you just need to spend more. Spend 10 grand this month. Spend 10 grand, didn't get anything. And so I took on that client, and when I started working with them, they said like, yeah, we're not doing Google ads because it doesn't work. We only want to do SEO. And I was like, okay, that's fine. We did SEO and we started getting them results. They were super happy, high quality leads, and increasing in volume. So I said, look, let's use Google ads to fill in the gaps. And they're like, absolutely not. And, they're a scam. But what I said is, look, we got the tracking system. Give me 3 months and just give me in those days, it was $600 a month. Now I'd probably recommend $2,000 a month. Run it for 3 months and let's see. And then you do it scientifically. So I think what I'm trying to say is by having a tracking system, you can run experiments, you can try things, you can get the data, you can see, and then you can make decisions based on what happens. So you have to spend enough to get enough data to know if it's working and to compete with your competitors. But you don't want to spend too much too soon, because it takes time. Like you said, it's hard. It takes time to optimize, to see the results, to see which are the bad leads, which are the good leads. And once you've tidied it up, then turn up the gas.
Going off on a different topic real quick, what's your take on the marketing attribution question, where people are like trying to understand, or let's just take, for example, a different Facebook ad campaign where you have like a broad reach campaign versus like a conversion campaign. And maybe even somebody sees a broad reach campaign or interacts with it and then actually closes on the Google ad. Like, what's your typical recommendation, and like how either a marketing agency or even a business owner handles like where they attribute the revenue to for that?
Yeah, I mean, broad reach campaigns where there's no click and it's just a view through and it's just more of a branding play. I kind of see broad reach display campaigns more as mind share, just branding. So I kind of put performance marketing and brand marketing in two different buckets. So I think performance marketing, when you're new and you're early on, I'm a fan of performance marketing. You've got a problem you're solving, you've got a product you want to sell. Choose the keywords, people search for those keywords, they buy the product, and then you get going. So I think in the early days, I would lean that way. For the broad-based marketing, if there isn't a click, it's difficult to track. But then is it effective? So the campaigns I see that are effective, like if you're doing Facebook, we don't track as much Facebook, but I know in the e-commerce players, the people that are pure e-commerce, Facebook is great. And you can buy from the shop directly from Facebook. You can also fill in a lead form from Facebook, which we track. So I suppose, I don't know if that helps, but to me, you do need to have some direct connection to sales in your marketing. And then as you've got name, as you've got revenue going along and you have a bit more margin, yeah, go ahead and do the broad-based, the display marketing, build your brand. So what brand does for you is it increases your conversion rate. Well, that's one thing it does for you. So even with WhatConverts, in the early days, competitors who have a larger brand would convert more than us. But as our brand has grown, as word of mouth has grown, and as we've done more display campaigns and our brand has grown, when people get into a demo or they do a trial, the conversion rate is higher. So I kind of see it as, if you're new and you're getting going, focus on performance campaigns. And then once those performance campaigns are going and you want to improve your conversion rates and get more of those performance campaigns, let's start doing display. Does that
Yeah.
answer?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that
Have you
definitely
seen
does
anything
answer.
else on your side?
I would say we're like that's a lot of the same conversations that we have with our companies that we work with too. Is like the same recommendation. When you have limited budget, we just need to get you leads and it gets you business coming in because that's what's really ultimately going to drive you forward and make you feel like happy with this type of relationship, but also be able to afford more is when we get a profitable campaign. So like if somebody comes to me and they have a limited budget of $500 even dollars, say, hey, let's just do a Google local service ad campaign. Let's just do a Google search ad campaign because I can target the highest intent of people ready to make a purchase. And it's all up to you to just close the call and convert them. But I would 100% agree with you. You have that brand recognition, somebody calling in, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this particular company. It's a whole lot easier to close on that.
Uh-huh.
Going back, I'm still a little bit blown away about, because I didn't even think about Google using the sales revenue data when you're putting that back in the algorithm of them using that to like make the big players even do more well because they're getting more value from it versus a smaller fish having a tougher time in that aspect.
Yeah, I see it in, so in the, like, if you go to Chicago, let's say, and you're an HVAC company, you've got the big players there, and you better be willing to spend because they're going to be spending $150 per lead to get a lead. And so you just think of those budgets, and now if you're competing with them, if you're not willing to spend $150 per lead, you're not going to be shown. And if you're only willing to spend $80 a lead, Google's not going to show you. So it's kind of like you either got to find the gaps between where the big players aren't really going. It's you got to. I just think you really got to understand the competitive landscape. Marketing, it's getting more competitive and it's getting more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people come to me, like when we started WhatConverts, and I said, guys, you got to qualify your leads and you got to give them a value. And the agencies every time would tell me, no, my client will never do that. And with my agency hat on, when I started WhatConverts, I used them on my agency clients. And I said, guys, you got to do this for me. And they were like, nah, too busy. We're happy with the results we're getting. But then a competitor came in the market and their Google Ads budget quadrupled for the same results. So they're getting 100 leads before for, let's say, $1,000. Now they're spending $4,000 for 100 leads. And so they're like, Mike, what do we do? And I said, well, we can either just spend more for the same amount, or you can qualify and value your leads and I can be strategic. And so we did that, and we found instead of targeting, 1,000 products, which they had, we targeted their top 50 with the highest value. So we spent more on those 50 and we reduced the spend on the others, and we sent the value back to Google, and they were able to compete, get higher value leads for their increased spend.
There's two things that come out of that for me. Number one of the things that we struggled with that same conversation with clients is like, and it always came back to like, if they weren't happy with performance, we would say, okay, well, we need you to qualify your leads and tell us which ones are good, which ones are bad, because we can't help you if we don't know, right? We need that particular feedback in order to improve. But we also started we're launching now actually a lead qualification service. So that's where, you pay a little bit extra and someone from our team is listening to every single call, is ingrained into your scheduling software, whatever it is, and automatically updates the quote values, the sales values, if it's good or bad lead, tells that with our ads team so our ads team can make optimizations to the campaign itself, and then puts in individual notes on every log within WhatConverts so we can actually see what specifically is going on. On top of course, like the AI transcription and the AI sales coach. So then we can go directly to the client at the end of the month and say, hey, these are the leads that you got. These ones were good. These ones are the ones that we need to optimize for. This is your total return on investment. We noticed these things listening to your calls and what your team needs to improve on in order to get a higher return on investment, for example. And this is what we're doing on our end.
That's hugely valuable to your client.
Huge. Because then it's the thing is like, it's hard finding time on their end to like for somebody to go in there and listen to some of the calls and document that. But they have to train somebody on how to do it. They don't necessarily know how to do it. But that's something that we started. Another thing that I recognized, and kind of going back to the Facebook ad stuff with Google Ads, we have a basement like waterproofing company in Ohio that we're working with. And so they do a lot of like basement cleanouts and then waterproofing the whole thing and sealing it out. And so their contracts or their deals are like not just like, oh, $100 here, $100 there. It's like tens of thousands of dollars for one job. So their cost is very high. And when our team went to Google Ads, for example, we did that and started that because it was, one of those things, lowest hanging fruit, high intent, did a phenomenal job there. But when we wanted to increase spend because they were looking, again, continue to grow because we were doing such a great job with Google Ads, we're like, hey, let's test out running some campaigns over in Facebook as a alternate rather than just increasing our spend on Google, because we're seeing from the auction insights that you're already getting a good portion of the impression share for what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And what we recognized through the data is actually seeing the cost per lead on Google Ads was like double that of what we found through Facebook. But with Facebook, it took longer and took more money because we needed to warm up an audience, like do a broad reach campaign, as we were talking about earlier, and then taking those people that interacted with the broad reach over to a conversion to actually capture the lead information. Or they converted later, like through organic, or they converted later through the actual Google ad itself because, the little cookie tied to their initial ad interaction was there.
No, well, it's just what you're saying in the end there. It's like they kind of work together, Google Ads and Facebook. And I see that many times. And I've seen that in Facebook, even my behavior. Like when I'm on Facebook, I'll check out something, check it out. Oh, that's interesting. And I'll check it out 3 times before I do anything. And the reason for that, like Google Ads has the triple T effect. You can target something at the time that they need it, and then you can track it. So I call it the triple T, because if you have a magazine ad and you just catch somebody at the right time, it's not going to be as effective as if somebody says, I'm looking for this and I want it. And then you say, like, here it is, I've got what you want. That's Google Ads. It's like when you want it, you search for it, you get what you want at the time you need it. That's why it's so effective. With Facebook, you may not need it at that time, but you're interested, so it takes longer to convert. And then at the time you do need it, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to search for it but you may have seen them on Facebook. So, that's why one of our favorite features, and you've probably used it, is our customer journey, where you can actually see every attribution point. And it's the higher the value that you're selling, the more attribution points there typically are. If it's a fairly low in value, it might be 1 or 2 attribution points and then they buy. But if it's a higher value thing, you probably see like several attribution points before they take the first conversion action.
Going into Google Ads and the triple T, how do you think this is playing into with AI? And I got to ask about the whole AI topic, and like, what are you guys thinking about for that, if anything? Like, what's on your radar?
So, if you want the quick answer, think these AI chatbots are going to be ad supported. And if they're ad supported, it's going to be very similar to what Google Ads is at the moment. And so if they're ad supported, they're going to have tracking data, and we can track that tracking data in WhatConverts. So even the ones that aren't ad supported, if they come from ChatGPT, we're already seeing leads and conversions from ChatGPT, but it doesn't have all the campaign information. And so with Google and the AI mode now, I think that's, obviously they got Google Ads already, and now they got AI mode, and it's Google Ads and AI mode. So yeah, we're tracking those already. But if I had a crystal ball to look at, I'd expect, ChatGPT to ultimately be ad supported.
Really, like a free version that people like. I guess the free version would become the ad supported version.
Perhaps, yeah, free version or even the paid version having some ads in. I'm not sure exactly, but they're not profitable at the moment. And how do you get profitable? You need more revenue. And I think the ad revenue is a whole lot higher than $20 per user. But I'll watch and see and what's going on. But to me, that's what I think's going to happen. Either they become profitable by just increasing revenue, or they become profitable where the training and all that doesn't take as much cost. Because at the moment, they're spending billions to train the models and, all the GPUs and the electricity. So either those costs come down as, things become, hit critical mass, or they do the ad spend. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I am watching it. But I think I'm betting there's going to be ads.
I could probably definitely see that, especially with Google. I mean, there's no way that they're gonna sit there and just take this beating from ChatGPT or others and lose out on their advertising revenue because it's such a big portion of their business. I also see ChatGPT or different AI models selling the data somehow. Like if you don't pay for like a higher level version, then there's some, I guess it could be advertising, but I don't know how you would like legitimately privatize the data in a ethical way to be able to sell like what somebody's interested in or chatting about with their AI model. Maybe they're using it as their therapist and then they start seeing therapy advertisements
Yeah.
on another platform.
I think it's coming. I mean, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they hated advertising when they started Google, and they weren't going to do it. But now they're earning, what's it, 300 billion a year from advertising revenue. I think Mark Zuckerberg as well wasn't initially a fan of advertising, but now, now they're also doing billions of dollars in advertising. I just think paying for a subscription, like as the models come out, it's like, well, $20 here, $20 there. Where in advertising, people are willing to spend, $100 a lead.
Mm-hmm.
So the advertising is just going to be higher revenue than subscription.
Yeah. And
I think if money still matters, I suppose advertising is coming. And I don't know about you, but I don't mind Google Ads advertising. It's relevant. It's for something I'm searching about. So it kind of helps. Advertising where you're watching TV and now it's, you sit through a minute. That's a pain. But yeah, anyway,
I could
that's
agree
what I
with
think.
that. I could agree with that. The part that I think I have a problem with advertising is like when you don't know where your data is or how it's being tracked. For example, Google Chrome. Like you can use Google Chrome, but it's kind of like not understanding how much they're learning about you and
Mm-hmm.
understanding you. And I think that, and I don't know how you necessarily go about that because I know it's anonymized and everything else, but I don't think that the end consumer or the general clients know how much of their information they're actually giving up. They're kind of just, oh yeah, it's a little black box of whatever that's within there.
With Google, like Chrome, they know everything. When you're driving, Google Maps, they know where you're driving. They know where you're going. They know what you're visiting. They know what schools your kids go to. Then they know it all. I think Facebook as well. I mean, if you got a Facebook pixel on any website and you've got a Facebook account, they know every website you visit. So it's kind of creepy and scary, and you can worry about it, or you can just stick your head in the sand and say, like, I'm not that interesting. So
I think I've tried to privatize some of my life, but then I just went back to like, you know what? It's not like I have anything to hide. What are you going to pull from me? A weird
exactly.
photo from when I was 13 that I took or something like that. I mean, I guess it's a little bit embarrassing, but who doesn't have that?
Who doesn't have that? And I mean, in some ways, there are regulations like Google Analytics. It changed from the Universal Analytics to GA4, and it made the product worse. And if you look at it, it kind of came down to they had to increase their privacy because in Europe they were getting penalized and, just to behave with the regulation. So they have to show the world that they're keeping things private. And that's why many times they could give you more detail of who the person is interacting with your website, but they can't. Because if they did, they'd be shut down very quickly. By them having it allows you to have better advertising, allows marketers to have better targeting. So I don't know. It's one of those things, but they have too much data on all of us. They probably have it already. So I sound very lackadaisical, but it is a serious thing, especially like in our systems. We spend a lot of time with the compliance and HIPAA and not allowing data to be breached or anything like that. So it is a serious topic. But I think as an individual user, or my personal usage, I'm not too bothered.
Yeah. I do want to go back to one thing that you mentioned about the revenue with like ChatGPT and like if you're using ChatGPT as a regular like chatbot, you're talking about it, whatever, and there's advertisements within that and versus the personal and how you mentioned that businesses are more than willing to spend a lot more money. I would say like the businesses that aren't using a system like WhatConverts don't necessarily understand how much money they're actually spending on it. So like for Google Ads, like there's probably so many accounts and campaigns and so much money that they're making because businesses don't have a clue about like the actual stuff that they're tracking because they're just spending money. Like the Performance Max campaigns, there's so many businesses out there just running Performance Max campaigns without tracking a single thing, and their
Yeah.
budgets are whatever, and it's just going left and right. But like when you have a system like WhatConverts to be able to track and see how much you're spending for what and understanding like, hey, what did they actually search? I feel like it gives a better appreciation of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even with WhatConverts, we run Google Ads and we spin up a Performance Max campaign. And initially, we weren't sending the value of like if we do a demo or if we do a trial sign up, like what's the value to Google? Because there isn't a value at that point. So we weren't sending it, and we spun up a Performance Max campaign, and they gave us like 20 garbage leads immediately. And so because we had the data and we looked at it and we're like, okay, hold on, pause that, close that campaign. Then we decided, okay, how much are we willing to spend for this opportunity, like for a demo or for a trial sign up? And so depending on if it's an agency or an individual customer or a customer in a specific industry, we've got different values and levels. We put that in, and then we spun up the PMAX campaign, and now it's learning, and it's like, oh, the garbage just disappeared. But you're right. And the number of times I've heard of people like, oh, I thought I put a monthly budget and it was a daily budget and I burned $5,000 in a week. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, and they got nothing for it. Those stories are there. And then, like you said, yeah, I'm running PMAX. Google tells me it's better. And I've got, 100 form leads that are filled in or 100 calls. And they're not looking at the value. They think they're doing great, but it's all just noise. And
So
yeah.
are you having success with Performance Max campaigns for WhatConverts?
So this is early days. We have on the other automated bidding. We've had success. I will tell you, it's more expensive than I want it to be, but it is driving.
They preach it like it's the holy grail of advertising, this Performance Max campaign.
Yeah,
But every time I look at it, every time, it's never as good as just setting up a singular campaign, a single ad group and targeting that
yeah.
way.
I'm looking. So I have heard of, and I've seen some accounts that have some success, and I'm pretty convinced it's tied down to tying it to value as quick as possible. I'll report back, after we've done it some more. When we turned it on without the value, it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that. I have seen e-commerce campaigns do well from it, where they're getting, reduced cost per clicks and cost per lead.
Okay. I want to go back to the AI chatbots and the SEO real quick. Wolfpack, as a marketing agency, we're getting a pretty good amount of leads that we would say are from SEO, which are from chatbots. So we'll see within the lead report or whatever that they converted from, ChatGPT, they converted from Google Gemini or whatever. Do you see a lot of agencies like focusing on that, or like a lot of companies trying to I would imagine try to use WhatConverts to track that information?
It's very early days, so I'm seeing the news and the noise, what's going on, and I'm getting bombarded with emails of people offering AEO instead of SEO, answer engine optimization instead of search engine optimization. And I'm getting people like, how they do it. My view has always been, if you create quality content for your users, you're going to be fine. So you make sure you got the technical SEO sorted out, you got your link structure, all that. But if you're creating content that targets keywords, again, I always go back to what's the motivation of Google? Google wants to give you the best result, because if you get a great answer from your search, you'll come back again. And so they always want you to come back. If they give you a bad result, you're not going to come back and they lose users. So they're always optimizing for the best search experience. And I don't think it's any different for a chat engine. They want for you to come to them to get answers and get the best answer. How do they get the best answers? Well, they find the best content. And what's the best content? Well, it's pretty much follows the same thing as SEO.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I get a lot of companies on my social media because I'm pretty big in like different Facebook groups for a lot of the companies that we work with, and a lot of people DM me or comment on my stuff, or like I'll even share like screenshots of the WhatConverts data and the email that I get showing the
Nice.
source of it, and I just post that, or what, especially when it's like ChatGPT that was the referral source or something like that. And a lot of what they say is like, well, how do I optimize for that kind of thing, or like how can I do that? And my same wording that always goes is just like, it's the same thing that we have been doing. It's the same thing. I'm not doing anything special. You need to make sure like your website's crawlable, have all the technical stuff done, have all the accessibility, the regular SEO stuff. But besides that, provide really good, valuable content. The information that makes you unique to, if you're a local service area business, makes you unique to your area. For example, just going off on a little bit of a tangent, did you know that there's these hybrid termites that are moving more north from Miami? There's these two different breeds of termites, yeah. And the University of Florida discovered these two termites started mating, and now it's like this hybrid super termite, and it's making its way further north. Fun fact.
So what they're doing about it?
I don't know. I'm sure the University of Florida is trying to figure out how to get rid of them. Like they have tons of different chemicals and stuff, because we work with a lot of pest control companies. And so there's like these super hybrid termites because it comes from one particular breed that usually likes to eat the condensed wood, which is usually structural.
Yeah.
So it causes more damage to homes. And these two types breed together, and I don't believe that their chemicals and everything now works as well on them, and they're more damaging to homes.
Man, that sounds like a marketer's dream. You can really tap into those fears.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, we just, get a product that sorts it out and get prepared so your house doesn't get eaten.
Yep. I needed, going back to that, now that you made me think of it, there's an agency that we're looking at partnering with that creates really good video content, and he's a really good videographer and editor and does a phenomenal job. We could probably just do something up that's related to these hybrid termites.
Yeah.
I forget I gotta look it up, like what the name of it is, like UF hybrid, because it's like a special name.
Yeah. I mean, it's I get to wonder, like, why am I paying this anti-termite bill to my pest control company? And it's like, well, the house is built with wood, so just the thought, like, it could possibly happen is enough to keep on paying, monthly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. I don't know. And it's amazing that you don't realize like how much money can actually be involved in that. And I guess that goes back to the businesses and the privatizing. You could pay $20 with ChatGPT, or you can release it to the businesses and the marketers to spend a bunch of money on a cost per lead because the value of the customer is there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, you don't realize how much companies pay. But that's what I was saying to you in the email before this. It's like, if you're in a position where you are getting a positive ROI from your marketing, keep the momentum. Don't sit back and like, yeah, we've got enough. So I suppose I'd say, if you're getting a positive ROI and you want to continue growing, double down. Because it's just going to put you in a stronger position. It's going to grow your business, and it's going to allow you to weather a larger competitor coming around and outspending you. So I encourage it. I just, I don't think, because some people are like, hey, man, I'm getting a great ROI, pat on the back. And it's like, well, you're making $5 for every dollar you put into it. Put as many dollars as you can.
Yeah. That I saw that in your email that you sent over in terms of the different things we could discuss. But one of the things that I, again, have to, and I would imagine from your agency days, you get this as well, is sometimes with campaigns, you're going to have really solid months, and then you're going to have a dry month of like 2 or 3 months with campaigns that don't perform well. And the return on investment goes down for whatever reason, whether it's, the cost just goes up because other advertisers get in the market and the cost for everybody goes up, whether it's just like you have a dry spell of leads, but then you're going to have solid months that it performs really, really well. And like you mentioned, double down. But also my conversation to them is, once you get to a certain point of advertising on Yelp, it was set.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. They did. Yeah. So, I mean, when I'm mentioning that, like, double down if it's working. So many times I've had customers where it is working and they say like, Michael, these results are great. Can we spend more? There are times when you can't spend more, like in Google Ads. We had like high impression share, so meaning we were pretty much there every time someone searched for your terms, and we weren't exceeding the budget. So when they asked, like, can we spend more because the results are great? And because I had the tools and the insights, I was like, yeah, no, you actually can't spend more. And they're like, you sure? And they were keen to spend more. So it's very rare you get those situations, but I've had it several times And most of the times when it's so good, it's like, yeah, no, we can't actually spend more. But by saying that, I found in an agency-client relationship, it builds trust. You're saying, like, I know you want to give me more money, but I'm saying no
Mm-hmm.
because of this. And then when it comes to a day like, so when that was happening and the Google Ads thing happened where it was competing, I said, look, we've got to build a moat, and I think we can do it with SEO. So we diversified into SEO, which is like quadrupled the amount of SEO content we were doing with that client. And then what we found out is in the early days, their Google Ads was the highest performer. And then it flipped to Google Organic being the highest performer. So now we had a moat around, if people want to jack up the ad spending, we could be like, fine, go ahead. We're still good in the organic. So yeah, diversifying is good. Only double down if there's room to double down, But yeah, obviously you keep monitoring it because things will get more expensive. And then it's like, okay, we've got to make sure we stay ahead. It's
All right, Mike.
complicated. Marketing is harder than people realize.
It is. There's a lot of nuance to it. A lot of different nuance to it. And speaking of the complexity, we're running a little bit low on time, so I want to ask you one last question. And maybe this actually stems 5 more questions, but we'll see. There's a lot of people and business owners in general too that feel lost when it comes to marketing and maybe feel like it's a scam, right? Because there's so many marketing agencies, Michael, as I'm sure that you know, that don't do a good job. They don't use WhatConverts. That's the thing. They don't use WhatConverts, and so their marketing turns out to be a scam because they're not using WhatConverts. If they
I'm
just
going to
use
turn this into an
WhatConverts,
ad. Let's make an ad for WhatConverts.
they just use WhatConverts. It wouldn't be a scam.
Yeah.
No, I just mean genuinely, there's a lot of business owners that feel lost and confused when it comes to marketing. And they feel like it's so complex. Obviously, using a system like WhatConverts kind of makes it black and white, or we think it's black and white, but there's still a lot of complexity to it. What is your advice to these business owners that are like, feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the complexity and like trying to understand like WhatConverts and what it all does? Because, even a lot of our customers still get a little bit confused about it.
Yeah.
What's your advice to them?
So I think you've got to do your due diligence with agencies. Don't just listen to the sweet talker who says all the right things and promises the earth. Get a very, define what does success look like, and just say, okay, if I'm going to pay you this, what can we expect to get? Or even if we can't determine that, what is the process? You want to see a defined process and a defined measurement. Like, we hit this means we got success. And if you can set that up, that over a 3-month period, that we're going to measure it and see, and even along that pathway, I think that's going to help. The other thing I think helps is having references. Just really dig into the references. Show me who you've helped, how you've helped them. Is it similar to us? Is it a similar scenario? If they've got reviews, check out the reviews. There's some different review sites. I mean, Google, my Google business page, people can leave reviews on there. So if you're an agency, get some reviews on there. If you're a person looking for an agency, just make sure you're checking out reviews. So I think you do have to do your due diligence, and you have to have a very defined performance metric. Like, I was speaking to somebody the other day. It's a totally different industry, but they're an author, okay? And they were going to pay a PR company to get them broadcast into the social media channels and to get onto 30 different podcasts. And I said to them, okay, what's your KPI? And then they're like, oh, well, I get to all these people to get to see me. And I said, yeah, that sounds like impressions. That's terrible. So I said, you're an author. I said, you got to measure it by how many books you can sell. And I always look at will this campaign give me a high probability of hitting the KPI? So if you're an author selling books, if I spend this money, let's say it's $10,000 and it's early days, will I be satisfied with selling 1,000 books? So it pretty much means break even. What's the probability of me selling 1,000 books through this method? So when you looked at it on that lens, it was like, okay, looking at this, there wasn't a high probability of it happening. So it's like, pass it over. And you got to be disciplined as a business owner. If you can't determine a high probability of reaching your KPIs, keep looking. So I don't know. Is that enough?
I think that's solid. I was expecting a different answer, but I feel like asking the question of just knowing what your goal is, what your KPI is, and what the actual achievement is, I think that is better. Because if you understand what that is, you can go to somebody and say, this is what I'm looking for. Can you achieve this for me? And then they can hopefully use a system like WhatConverts or whatever to actually prove the revenue that they've generated from that. And just going for the Google reviews, Michael, I've been shouting you out this entire time. I got to shout out Wolfpack, my own agency, for a minute. And that's just for marketing agencies, Michael. I don't know if you know, if you've like looked on Google, but for marketing agencies, like looking at reviews for different ones, it's like a different animal. There's not like a lot of agencies that have a ton of good like Google reviews. Have you noticed that?
You know, I think they don't know where to go. I suppose there is just Google. I'm just checking yours up. Like 103 5-star reviews. Nice.
Yeah. Not a single 1-star. Isn't that crazy?
But that's like in your due diligence. If somebody checks it out, then they're like, okay, great. And then it's like, okay, can I speak to some of your clients? And I think as a business owner, you got to do the real due diligence and reviews, speak to references, and the clients, and like really get into it. Because obviously the agency is going to give you the best clients, and then, but ask the questions, and then, set up the measure, like what. So even with WhatConverts, like I run the marketing. If we're looking at a new campaign or somebody approaches me for something, like somebody wanted me to help them sponsor a trade show. And I said, look, what's the probability that I'm going to get this many signups or demos based on the sponsorship? And I said, I just divide the sponsorship value by those. And I've got a customer acquisition cost that I target. And when I look at it, it's like, you haven't given me enough information. I can't determine the probability. So the answer is no. And so I look at it through that lens. I mean, with Google ads as well, or even if we're doing SEO and a content people, I divide it all down by how much does a trial sign up and how much does a demo cost me. So,
beautiful advice, Michael. Beautiful advice.
And install WhatConverts so you can track it all.
That's a simple answer. Yeah.
Okay. Is that the answer you were expecting?
I was expecting no, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't, but that was still good anyway. Michael, I know we've talked about your name and everything else throughout the entire podcast, but for those people listening, where do you want them to find you? What should they look up?
Yeah, they can find us at whatconverts.com, and then also with LinkedIn. I'm getting more active there. I post on LinkedIn. So it's Michael Cooney on LinkedIn. If you search for me, you'll find me. Give me a follow.
You're a LinkedIn person, huh?
Yeah. I'm also an X person, but I don't post there, but I am an X reader.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've always said Twitter, but that's probably the first time I've said X, which used to be Twitter. So
you're hip now. You're cool. That's what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, but, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. I appreciate the time and everything else. Everybody that's listening to the Marketing Alpha podcast, go check out whatconverts.com or link up with Wolfpack Advising, the best marketing agency, obviously, because we have 103 5-star reviews, not a single 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star. We have 1 4-star, which is very disappointing, but read it. It's a good one. It's a beautiful one. I love that one. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you, Michael. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you for listening to Alpha Marketing. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other business owners and marketers. Your support enables us to continue bringing you actionable advice and the tools you need to thrive. Join us next time for more insights with Aaron Shishilla, and keep striving to be the alpha in your market.